Anyone thought about this before?
Yes.
It's an important question, right? So if you actually look in our texts, there are different levels of reality. This is especially taught in what we call Vedanta. Anybody heard of Vedanta school? So actually we follow the Vedanta school in terms of our, what we call, in Sanskrit it's called Tattva Pramana, how we derive truth. We derive truth principally through the primary source is scripture, but then we confirm scripture with empirical evidence and general logical evidence, etc., ideas which fit within the scripture. So we use scripture kind of as a measuring stick to then contemplate reality and analyze reality. So we do not reject science, we do not reject logic, we do not reject maths. That would be very silly. But at the same time, we confirm them through the scripture. And same thing with psychology, same thing with behavior, dharma, values, all of these things we confirm it through scripture. So this is called the Vedanta Darshan, or the Vedanta, what we call Tattva Praman or Tattva Gyan. Tattva means spiritual truths. So in this particular school, we actually approach reality. This was taught by Shankaracharya. There's different ways of approaching reality. So he is one of the acharyas of the Vedanta lineage. Our theology, our study of God is different than him, but everything else is the same as him. So even within the Vedanta school, there are two branches. So he explains it very nicely based on the oldest Vedic texts, that when you deal with people in real life, you deal with them on different levels. Not people, when you deal with this world in general. There he gave three, but for the purpose of this, we will just discuss two of them. One is called, if I can even remember, Lokik Vichar. Vichar means consideration, and then Lokik means, anyone remember this lok? I explained it the other day in Latin, like location, locale, etc., etc. Locate. It's the same as loka in Sanskrit actually. So loka means a place. So Lokik Vichar means considering time, place and circumstance. In other words, considering the relative situation you're in. And then the other one is called Paramarthik Vichar. What does Artha mean? Anyone remember?
Artha.
Yeah, A-R-T-H-A. Like Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Anyone remember? Shami should remember. Okay.
Wealth.
It can be wealth, but other ways. Huh? In the context of this, how would you, they're all correct, but there's another nuance for this particular example I'm giving now.
The goal.
Yeah, Artha means something which is value or needed. So we need wealth, we need money, etc. So the Artha is also translated as needs. So Paramarthik means our highest need. You can also say our highest wealth. Or what was the other words you used? Wealth, prosperity. So the highest Parama means the topmost, right? Like Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the topmost Ishvara. So basically he says that there are two ways in which we deal with reality. One is we deal with people according to our material circumstance. The other one is we deal with people at the right time according to them being a soul. So for instance, if we fill out a form, say you're going to the government, you have to fill out a form, and then they say, what is your name? And then he puts, what's your spiritual name? Shama Sundar Krishna Das or something? Just Shama Sundar Das.
Bad example because it's saying material and spiritual.
But you don't put Watting, right?
Right?
But Watting is your surname?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
Watting, I would put.
Yeah. So if you put Shama Sundar Das, it's not correct because it's not your legal name, isn't it? But on the platform of Paramarthik Vichar or spiritual consideration, that's your name. And then you put, they say age, and then in age you put, the soul has no age, it never has birth or death, it's not created, it's eternal, everlasting, imperishable. So that's correct, right? But it's not the right context to discuss. And then it says, where were you born? And then you said, no, you're not going to catch me on this trick question, the soul is never born. Imagine. And then they...
Evaluation, we can write this.
And then they ask for gender, and then you put transcendental. They say, then they reply, they say, you're not in the 31 list, you're not a fairy, not a two-spirited, gender neutral. Transcendental is not in the 31 options. So then you get in trouble. I think in Sweden they only give 3, right? 3 or 4, something. So then they ask, what is your address? And then you say, the soul is not located in any place. So, one second. The notifications are all coming up. And then for address, you don't put an address. What will the government say if you answer all of these questions like this? What will the government say? What do you think?
They'll be wondering what all this stuff.
Yeah, they'll be like, this guy is crazy. It's very inappropriate. So actually, we have to learn, maturity in spiritual life means to deal with certain things in the right way, according to vichar. Vichar means consideration or context, you can also say. So a mature spiritualist, just like we had this quote yesterday, that people who are sentimentally driven, you don't use logic to convince them. And people who are logical, you don't use sentiment to convince them. You have to convince people according to where they're at and what their needs are. If somebody has a sentimental attachment to a point or conclusion, that means you need to fulfill the emotional needs they have, and then they'll become satisfied. Sometimes it's a combination also of both. And then the same thing, if someone is looking for a really technical answer and you give like a very loving, oh, you're so sweet, and there are so many answers, this and that, and then he's like, you're just beating around the bush, I want the black and white answer. Has anyone felt like that? Sometimes you ask for an answer and then you're just like waffling on, there's no clear answer.
Yes.
So sometimes you just want a black and white yes or no, 1 or 0 answer, binary code. So when we have all of these relationships with people, we have to know deep down that they're a spirit soul, but according to what is beneficial in the moment. This was a key word, beneficial, right? In the last class. So what is beneficial according to the moment? If somebody is misbehaving towards you, it's not beneficial for you to say, oh, he's a spirit soul, I forgive you, no problem. And then the person beats you again in school, right? So what did we tell you yesterday if that happens? We gave you 2 options. Huh?
What? Can you say the question?
If somebody is like bullying at school, then you can't just be like, oh, he's a spirit soul, his soul is pure, I'm not going to say anything, do anything, I'm spiritual. What should you do? We discussed yesterday, remember? So we gave you a few options. This is not like there's no fixed answer, you have to test. You have to test what works. But one option is, the next time the guy pushes you, you push him back. Maybe this doesn't happen in the world of girls as much, but generally every single boy will get in a few fights when they're at school, right? With girls, maybe not physically, but they may do subtle digs, right? They may say things, words can be more painful sometimes. So if you let them always criticize you and you never attack them back or have good comebacks, then what happens? They may continue doing it more. So one way is you have to push back, and then they'll realize that you're not a pushover, and then they'll leave you alone. Just like I never had a fight at school, but once there was this guy in school, and he pushed me. He's like, basically because I'm Hindu and he was Pakistani, so they hate Hindus. So he basically pushed me. And then I immediately pushed him back and he nearly fell on the table. And then the teacher shouted at us. So it stopped, but none of them ever said anything to me again, because they realized that this guy is going to fight back, so it's not worth it. We'll find someone else who won't fight back. So the same thing in school, if people do mind games with you, they kind of attack you verbally, you have to get prepared to sometimes defend yourself. Another way is that you try to make friendship with them and understand where they're coming from and then work with them. You can try also that. So there's different techniques you have to find. So spiritualist doesn't mean you spiritually bypass, but it means you're practically trying to work in a way which will resolve the situation, but inside you don't hold anger, even though externally you push the guy just to show, or you swear back at the person, or you have a comeback to the person, or whatever it is. You may need to externally do something, but internally you're still at peace. That's why Krishna told Arjuna, he says, Ma manusmara yudhesha. He says, you can very peacefully think of me, but fight at the same time. So your internal world is peaceful, but your external world, there can be a storm going on. So the spiritualists, they understand these 2 distinctions, that I have to keep my peace internally, but it doesn't always mean keeping the peace externally, because the material world is always changing. So we have to look at the long-term effect of our actions. Just like Hanuman was very violent, right? He went to burn down Lanka, to kill Ravana. But actually he didn't do it out of anger, he did it out of his duty to protect the innocent people who were being exploited, and especially Sita Rani, who was kidnapped, and Ravana he actually wanted to either rape her or kill her, but he couldn't do anything because of his curse. So he was one of the biggest exploitative demons in the world. So although Hanuman externally did some violence, burning down some buildings, he actually scared Ravana enough, and then when Ram came, he finished the job. So if Hanuman says, no, I'm very humble, I'm just a saintly spiritual person, then him and all of the other innocent Vanaras and all of the innocent people, they would have been killed and exploited by Ravana. So a spiritualist has to look practically, but inside they maintain their peace, they maintain their shanti. Shanti is not freedom from external disturbance. Shanti means freedom from internal disturbance. And what does internal disturbance mean? What disturbs you internally? It's not other people. Other people have no... people can only, on the outside world, can only affect you because you let them. So what does it mean, internal disturbance? It's not external things. So what are the things which disturb us internally? What do you think? Yeah?
The mind.
The mind, yeah. But what about the mind?
Like what you said, when we let people affect us, that's the internal disturbance, that like the anger or the sadness, something like that.
So yeah, material desires and expectations. This is what disturbs us. So material desire is actually what blocks our peace. It's not other people and expectations. When you're free from material desire, then it's very easy to take shelter of spiritual things. And when you have shelter of spiritual things, external things don't disturb you. Just like we're about to watch a video, there's one devotee, Tribhunath Prabhu. He was distributing big Arabic Gitas. In the old days, the Gitas were very thick and big, like 20 centimeters by like 30 centimeters, very big books, like 1,000 pages, because they didn't know how to format the books efficiently, so they were so thick. So they were distributing 10,000 Arabic Gitas in Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, different countries. And they got arrested, not because they were devotees. They were very intelligent not to get arrested for that. But they got arrested because they were white, so they thought they were the CIA, even though he was Irish, but they thought he was the CIA, so they put him in prison. But he actually said, even though he was in prison, he never felt alone, disturbed, or distressed, because he was just chanting and meditating while he was in the prison. And when he came out, then he was still okay. And he went into solitary confinement, which is generally people who go into solitary confinement, they come out with mental health problems, traumas, or they actually go completely crazy sometimes. And on top of that, his cell was very low that he couldn't stand up. So that's really, really bad for health. If you can't stand up and regularly exercise your full body, it's extremely bad for your health. And then on top of that, there was no light. There was just like some small light from outside, like in the building, but further down, but he was in solitary confinement, so there's almost no light, like almost completely dark, and almost nothing to eat. So when one becomes more spiritually advanced, then actually nothing in the material world can affect you. Just like Srila Prabhupada was taking, was it for his teeth, something, or heart attacks? He was taking some treatment in the hospital, somebody remembers, maybe it was some surgery. And so he went into the hospital, and then they said, okay, now we're going to put you under anesthetic. So they told Brahmananda, I think it was. So then they put the injection, and then they said, oh, this guy didn't fall asleep. Generally old people, they fall asleep really quick, you know. And he's very small, very short, skinny, so his body's, not that heavy. So they said, okay, maybe there's some fluke, we'll put one more injection. And then they put one more injection, and then they waited a long time, nothing happened. So they said, okay, let's wait a little bit longer. Generally it happens within a few minutes. Him, it's already been half an hour, so what to do? They're looking through their books, wondering what's going on, this guy is some anomaly. And then they said to Brahmananda, they said, what should we do? This old man, we've given him enough general anesthetic to knock out a horse. But he's not going to sleep. So they said, what should we do? It's not working. And they said, oh, you should have told me. So then he said to Prabhupada, he says, Prabhupada, they want you to go to sleep. Prabhupada said, oh, okay, immediately. So, because that's called Turiya state. There are 4 states which the soul experiences. So on the Turiya state, you're actually free from any conditioning, so nothing can affect you. So it's a big topic, many stories, but no time. So thank you. Does that satisfy the question? It's a very general, principled answer. It's not so detailed because it's a complicated thing, but...